Repeat. And now, the host of Think, Change, Repeat, Ashley.
Welcome to another episode of Think, Change, Repeat. Today is Thursday, August the 20th, 2026. I'm your host today, Ashley, and with me is my special guest, Tim Hinchliffe. Hello, Tim. How are you doing?
Hello, Ashley. I'm doing quite well tonight. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm thrilled to get the invitation. Thanks.
Yes, I was so excited that you were able to join me. And before we get into our episode, I want to give people an idea if they happen to not be familiar with your work. You are currently visiting your former home of the United States, but you are an expat living in Colombia near Medellin.
Yeah.
I may not have said that correctly, but so you're kind of living this rural lifestyle there, and we can get into that a little bit.
Sure.
But you have been, you own half of and publish for the Sociable website, which is in my show notes. You can find Tim on his X handle that's in the notes, his Sociable handle on X, and the actual website for the Sociable. And then if you go on, say, like YouTube or Rumble and you search Tim Hinchliffe, then you're able to find other interviews that he's done with other people, such as Hervoye of Geopolitics and Empire and Johnny Vedmore. And then we can get into some of the other interviews that Tim has done as well, because some of these are pretty big names and it's pretty interesting. And he has been looking into, I would say, in my layman's terms, I would say just the Davos crowd, the technocratic agenda for many years. And he's going to give us more details, but I just wanted to outline a little bit of his bona fides, as they would say, and let you know the work that he's been doing and that he's trying to warn us. He's trying to tell us he is doing the work that other people do not want to do. And I can attest to that personally, because he actually watches all of the Davos meetings. And that is, in my opinion, very, very difficult. And I think I would really struggle with that. So having said that, Tim, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit of, kind of your journey and being an expat and the study, the work that you do, just a little bit of a summary.
Oh yeah, nice. Well, and thanks for that intro. And yeah, you're spot on those things. So with being in Colombia, I know that word expat, and it can be romanticized with Hemingway and Fitzgerald in the 1920s and in Europe and things. I think of myself as a migrant still. But I've been in Colombia for 12 years. I started off with just as an intern, with no pay at a online newspaper, Columbia Reports, and that's where I cut my teeth in journalism. Just reporting on in English from Spanish sources and things, doing what's going on with the rebels, what's going on in politics, sports, um, bikini clad babes, just anything. Like whatever it was. So that's where I started doing that. But there came a time when my visa was expiring and I had no money, and I was thinking about going back to the United States, and all of a sudden I got offered a job in PR, which the PR led into uh, going into tech and business writing and like startups and stuff. And then I was looking into the tech stuff, and I was like, okay, I'm really interested in artificial intelligence. I love science fiction. Started looking into Davos around 2016, and that sort of thing, and it just kept growing and growing from there, until yeah, I got offered a job. I stayed. A 3 month to 6 month gig turned into 12 years and counting. Yeah, that's where I'm at now.
And and you had also traveled and worked in Africa as well,
Oh
in
yeah,
West
yeah,
Africa, right?
yeah, yeah.
So what made you decide originally, like, your family is still here in the States,
Mm.
and you what made you decide to say, "You know what? I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna go overseas and spend time in
Yeah.
West Africa." What was that like?
Well, first, yes, it's because I was going before that in a former life. I used to work in restaurants for about almost 10 years. I did everything from washing dishes, line cook, head cook, front, and then also front of the house, host. server, busboy. Like I did everything in restaurants, and that's what made me want to leave the United States. The very first time I did that was in 2011. I was living in Seattle, and I was wildly depressed. I couldn't make any money. I wasn't using education. I wasn't using my brain, and I did the digital equivalent of spinning the globe. Um, to find an internship. And so that was I did that for Colombia, and I also did that for Africa. Just I was like, all right, I need some adventures. I need to go out and get more experience because in the United States, back in the 15 years ago, no one would hire you unless you had 3 to 5 years of experience in anything. So I couldn't find any kind of job. So I was like, all right, I'll go on adventures. And Africa, oh, it was great. I was actually in a newsroom with the physical newspaper, like ink in physical newspaper. The
The
Ghanaian,
good old days.
yeah, and they would send me editor. Like I'd go in for the day, and the editor would go, "You're going to this press conference over here with Anglo Gold Ashanti. You're going over here with whatever the ACL, not ACLU. What's it? What's the other one? Yeah, American Civil Union. But it was one of the it's a yellow one with the fire. I don't know. It was a civil rights group. And then yeah, and I got to eventually meet the former president of Ghana at his house. I just walked up to I walked up the newsroom and the office, and editor says, "You will be going to the president's house." And I talked with 20 Zongo chiefs about tribal land rights and eating some chicken and rice, and it was a bittersweet time. I was there 5.5 months, and I was sick every 2 weeks with some kind of stomach bug. Sanitation wasn't so great. Didn't have running water. I lived with a Ghanaian family, like with 4 generations, who would get mad at me if I just took one little strip of toilet paper. Who told you you could use that? Like, okay. And then a good friend that I met there ended up stealing my camera and laptop at the very last week I was there. So it was a bittersweet time, but I also learned a lot. It was cool.
Wow. That I mean, all those things, but limit like I just think that I guess I am very spoiled in that way. Like running water, I don't know how long I could really go
Oh, I
without
got
those.
culture shock when I came back to the US. And like when I came back, I was like, does the toilet flush? Do I have to get the bucket? Do I have to get the water from out back to make the toilet, do all that? Yeah, I lost so much weight, and I was just a deer in headlights after I came back. Had
Do
to
you
be
think it
recuperated.
yeah, do you think it made you a better person?
It taught me patience. Above all, like that anything, because over there it's what they call organized chaos. And it's almost like that Murphy's Law too. But not stuff is not going to work right. Nothing goes to plan. Nothing is on schedule. But not to worry so much, and don't get over agitated over anything. Just like, oh, that's how it is. If it's out of my control, it's like the serenity prayer. It's like grant me the wisdom to know the difference. Like it's out of my control. Um, so why not just enjoy the moment? If I want to get from point A to point B and that's not happening, well, look, there's a monkey over there, or there's this trotro over here, or someone's doing something weird over here, or I can have a coconut. Like it's there's something else going on. Yeah, it'll be fine.
Yeah. I do, and I do think that kind of reminds me a little bit of, if you go to, like, I went to Belize once or Jamaica, something like that. Island time, like, slow down,
Oh,
stop being so stressed out about everything.
uh-huh.
Is that kind of reminiscent of the vibe?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because you can't. You won't. I love the phrase in Ghana. It's like I'm coming, which means when? No, it's things like, "I hear you, I'm listening," but it's like nothing's gonna happen right now. So, yes, there is that island time, that vibe. I mean, even in Colombia, when they say, "Alright, we're gonna meet at 9 o'clock," it's like, no, you're just going into the shower at 9 o'clock. At 9:30, you're kind of shaving, and like, or for women, like, now we're doing our hair at 10 o'clock, and by the time someone gets out, it's like 11:30. So that's standard, that's just known. So there's no punctuality, but yeah.
I find that, I mean, it's very weird for me as somebody who has struggled with punctuality my entire adult life. And I just feel like maybe I was born in the wrong place. Maybe I need to be in a place with a little bit more flexibilities as far as these things go.
Yeah, when I show up 5 minutes early to any place in Colombia, they're just like, look, I'm like, what? We're not even open. Like, what are you doing here? Like, it's not the doctor will see you now. It's no, you gotta, yeah, hurry up and wait is what I do. Because I'm
Right.
still got in that mindset. But yeah.
Right. It's like it's very much an American mindset, I
Mhm.
guess. Or maybe a Western mindset. But anyway, okay. So we have a little bit of an idea of your kind of earlier days. You wanted to make this career shift and you
Mhm.
just decided, I'm looking for an internship. And you decided to really just go with it, which
Yeah.
is very brave, in my opinion, much braver than I.
Mhm.
And you had some experiences. So were you interning in Colombia? And then that's when you made the decision, I'm going to make this my home?
Yeah, yeah. Because I went to Colombia twice. I went to Colombia once for 3 months, loved that. Then I went to Africa. Then it was a cool experience. And after Africa, I always wanted to go back to Colombia. So I did a hop. I went here, there, here, there. So I got back to the United States, couldn't find a job again. That's when I was like, I'm going to Colombia. Actually, no, I went to Peru first. Like in 2014, I went to Peru. I thought I was going to be a travel writer. I went to Cusco, visited some ruins, and I was there for a month. And I didn't end up like writing anything, nor to pitch it anywhere. And when I was in Peru, I called up my former editor in Colombia, because I used to live with him, a Dutch anarchist, crazy guy. And I just wanted to go spend, like, hey, can I just live with you in your apartment? I'll rent out a room just for 6 months, not even like looking to work. But once I saw the newsroom and everything take place, then I wanted to get back into that. And that's when I got into the really like, this is, I'm not going to do travel writing. I did journalism for like a year and a half, unpaid. Went back to Colombia just thinking it was a vacation because I didn't know what else to do. And then started doing the journalism stuff again, unpaid, and then that's when I got offered the job. So yeah, I went back and forth, like it was the timeline's kind of helter skelter, but yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
So let's talk about your um maybe your political ideology, or not exactly like sides, but sort of
Mhm.
like the evolution of your thinking while you're getting this experience. Like,
Ah,
if you were living as an American in Seattle,
mhm.
generally, if I'm
Do it.
stereotyping,
Go
then
for
I'm
it.
thinking you're like a liberal,
Yep.
a super liberal guy.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So talk to us about your evolution of thinking, and where do you land now?
Mhm.
Because a lot of us, I originally met you on the Third Rail podcast with
Mhm.
Nature Boy Dave, and we had a panel, which was a lot of fun. And, but a lot of people in this space are, at the very least, like, if you're not anarchist or libertarian, like, you're somewhere in that overlap. So, what was your evolution of figuring out, like, I think something's going on
Yeah.
outside of politics?
Mm. Yeah, because all right. So when I came of mind, was aware of politics. 18, getting out of high school. I graduated high school in 2003, and that was the very beginning of the Iraq War. That's when Bush, and that's when I went to college. 2003, 2004 is when I started university in Western Washington, at Western Washington University in Bellingham, which is one of the most liberal colleges you could go to. So, yeah.
Well,
So,
I guarantee you they had one thing right, that they were probably very anti-war at
yes.
that time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so was I.
So, yeah,
And so
good.
for me, it meant the right Republicans, they're the devil, so it has to be the other side, the left. Like they're the good ones. They're for the people, they want peace and they're the yeah, right. So yeah, I thought that way for a long time. I even remember talking to conservative friends like, I just read Karl Marx and Frederick Engels' Communist Manifesto, and I think they had some good points there. Like I actually was like that, even up until yeah, for years. But once Obama got elected, um, I was like, oh, glory to the union, the nation, we're saved. And then I started seeing more clandestine things. So where the Republicans or the right or the conservative or whatever was outwardly like war hawks, the left was saying, no, we're not like that, but let's just drone strike this over here. Let's go kill these people. And I started seeing that, and that started peeling layers away. And it was around the year 2011, 2012 is when I discovered Bill Cooper and David Icke, and just like some of the early stuff, even Alex Jones as well. And then I started going down rabbit holes. And then I went, I mean, at first, when it comes to that kind of thinking, when you start realizing and unraveling things like, oh, that was a lie. Oh, my whole belief system is shattered. You might go full, what do they say in Tropic Thunder? The full retard, like over the top conspiracy on everything. So I did that for a little bit, like in 2012, 2013. But I mean, I was between the journalism stuff and I was working in a restaurant one more time. I was working in an Applebee's where I was getting all these crazy ideas about that. So yeah, so it started from right is bad because of Iraq war. Then it was, oh, left is bad, hypocrites. And I didn't even think about economics or anything like that. So it was just war, fighting, killing, and hypocrisy. I realized, oh, they're hypocrites. And so, and then when Trump first got elected in 2016, I thought that was going to be the end of the world because of, oh, big business. I don't want that. But and then I got really kind of, oh, okay, things are going all right, I think. But I think it was around 2018, 2019 where I just said, no, I give up. Left, right, they suck. I hate this. There's no sense, and I actually never voted. The only time I actually tried to vote was in 2004 for John Kerry, but I never registered I never registered because when I was 18, I was really into John Lennon and and the Beatles and the anti-Vietnam. Like I was looking at these old videos and reading about Vietnam, and I was like, no, I'm not going to register. They might draft me one day. So so I never registered, so I never got to vote. And yeah, so the only time I did try to vote was in 2004. I got in the mail back saying, "No, it was rejected because you're not registered." I was like, "Oh, okay." Yeah, so I've never voted. Um, and politics-wise now, no, it's what I see. It's it's the union. It's public-private partnerships is what's going on. There's people pulling the strings behind every politician. There's back deals. There's technocrats. There's businesses. Just everyone. Just whoever has influence and power is just so that's where I'm at now. I got yeah. Whenever someone asks about politics, it's like I got bigger fish to fry. You're like
Yeah,
I'm after the bigger one.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and I think that kind of leads us naturally into sort of the next part of the conversation because it's not. I don't want to only talk to you about the technocrats and that kind of thing, but well, actually, before we get into that, let's talk about how this really became on your radar. So you said you sort of went like super into the conspiracy world.
Mhm,
Then you began kind of leveling out and trying to be a little bit more moderate in your thinking, which I think is often, not always, but I think often that's kind of the case because when you see people such as an Alex Jones presenting information that is so different than anything that you've ever heard, then I think it's very enticing to just go all the way into that and just
mhm,
think that they're telling you 100% the truth. So it's almost like you have to finally realize that it is our responsibility to figure out who is being honest with us and if
mhm,
they have other motives and agendas and maybe some secret connections of their own.
mhm.
So I do think that is a journey in and of itself. But let's discuss how this originally got on your radar to begin with. And then we can talk a little bit about when it really ramped up and you made this decision and you can explain to us why you really decided this is what my focus is.
Yeah, so my very first article on the Sociable was October 30th, 2015. And it was like I got put in charge of this publication it was like, hey, who wants? I'll do it. I'm doing this. It was handed to me at the beginning, and but it was like they were kind of the ones who bought it, who acquired it. They're like, well, we kind of want a business and startup focus, but in the tech area. I'm like, okay, technology, great. I'm always interested in artificial intelligence. So the very first article I wrote was AI and the Epic of Gilgamesh and about digital immortality. So,
Very interesting. And that it's interesting too, because I was listening to, I think it was your one of your more recent episodes that you did with Johnny Vedmore,
mm,
and because you were covering Davos 2026,
mhm.
and you said that this was one of the places that you started at because you're kind of looking at like the origin story, which I find very interesting because it's like a
Oh,
villain origin story in a
yeah.
way.
Oh, because I mean, 'cause even before I was really into mythology. I was reading so much Joseph Campbell. I was really into not just mythology, but even you know, all- uh, shamanism and all these things. So, and I'm looking at it, trying like, how does this go into technology and history? And like, and I was looking at creation myths, like the Popol Vuh from the Mayans, and I was likening these things to the creation myths, even in the Bible, of like how the gods create human out of earthly materials, and their purpose was to serve the gods and to adore them. And I was like, oh, are we the gods now? And the AI is like our creation, and what happens? There's a rebellion, and they cast away God, and God has to destroy them in a flood, or the gods, and all that. But to get to Davos, yes. So 2015, the end of 2015, I'm writing about AI and looking into all this. Like, what's the craziest kind of technology out there that's the most like I'm looking at sci-fi for inspiration, but I'm looking at, well, what's actually real right now. And then I see that's what got me on the radar of the World Economic Forum. I've always known them from like reports like, oh, according to the World Economic Forum, or McKinsey says this, or or Deloitte says this. Like, just if you need like a quote or stat for something, I always thought of the World Economic Forum as something like that prior to actually seeing the 2016 Davos January, and they had all the sessions there. And the first session that I ever covered uh, on the Sociable for the WEF was about brain transparency, and it was Duke University's Nita Farahani talking about instilling pain in the brain to coerce confessions or to plant false memories. And once I saw that, I'm like, all right, I don't need to watch sci-fi anymore. I mean, I still will. I'm still a fan, but you guys are doing this. I mean, you're talking about it, and everyone else is just going, "Oh yes, we could do that in a legal system. Oh, that's fascinating." I'm like, who are these people? And that's when I started looking at all the different people who would attend. I looked at other sessions, and I always kept it on my mind and radar. And then, like a couple years later, then Yuval Noah Harari came along. Really was plugging into him, everything that he was saying about hackable humans, and so it's like, are you warning us? Like, or do you want this to happen? Like it's and I always like I really try to take a neutral stance for quite a long time about. I always gave someone the benefit of the doubt, like, oh, you're just talking about what could happen, futurism stuff. Um, but yeah, but some of these people are very materialistic. They don't think much of humans, and yeah, it took me a long time to realize, there are people who don't think like you and I. There are people who don't have consciousness, or a conscience, or like empathy, or any those kind of things. Yeah, and the more I lear- dive into it, the more I see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I think it's interesting coming at it from your perspective of originally starting out being a science fiction fan and being more neutral. See, my particular journey was basically through, being an anarchist or an agorist, or at least thinking that agorism was the way to go, and then the globalists were not on my radar until 2020. And by then it was very much being presented to me as, no, these are absolutely like, and my friend Doc Rock is in the chat here, and we'll shout out everyone else later, but I just did an episode with him and my co-host for another show that we do called Fool Me Twice, and we were talking about License to Kill and A View to a Kill, and the idea of these super villains. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of these people have overlap with, honestly, with Bond villains, very much
Yeah,
so. Um, yeah,
it
go
was
ahead, Tim.
amazing. Yeah, it was amazing because really what turned like everything clicked. Because I started off even as a teenager, someone in school, I always followed the rules. Like I was like the teacher said, he followed directions. He did like and I got straight. Like I was the best in class at in Spanish. I was the best in even English grammar. I was the only person in the entire school to get 100% on the grammar. Like and I always followed the rules in basketball and baseball. No, this is the play we're running. You have to stand here, do this, and I was mechanical almost to a T. Like I just obeyed and did everything. But then I realized like that isn't really helping me out that much. The ones who break the rules are actually doing succeeding and like what am I okay, so breaking away from that. I always so there's a self-doubt in me for quite a while. So from 2015 until about 2020, I saw where all this stuff was going, the direction of the technology, the agendas, and all that. I saw what was going. But then once the COVID lockdowns hit and everything got enacted, and like they showed their cards, I was like, I knew it. I knew it. Like I read it. I saw it. I've been looking at the trends, and now it's happening. And now I gotta speak up. I gotta say something. And then that's when I started going like feverishly writing, like researching, writing more. Like here's all the reports that here's from before. Now this is what's happening now. They said this. Now it's happening. They said this. Now it's happening. They're doing this, and they're hypocrites here. Like I was in a feverish thing from 2020, late 2020 to 2023, 2024, like nonstop, like just on boom, boom. And and what I found is that yeah, every single COVID narrative in control thing that you're trying to do, uh well, they started with the climate change stuff. And they want to go back to do the same thing. It just always they need a new boogeyman, every
Right.
time. Yeah, but the agendas always stayed the same.
So whenever things finally started to click for you that I'm moving from a neutral position to actively looking at these people as it well, in a negative way, basically, that they
Sociopaths and psychopaths, yeah.
yes, that I'm recognizing them for that I'm considering them that going forward.
Mm,
Did this in all of your research, maybe walk us through what does your research look like? So,
mm,
because I know that can kind of encompass a lot of different areas, but does this look like I'm looking into your background, your lineage, as like who your
mhm,
parents were, what they were doing as
mm,
much as I can. I'm looking into your finances. I'm looking into your
mm,
connections. Like, did you go to, because this is one of the things that you were discussing with, I believe it was Hervoyer, and he essentially was saying a lot of this is born out of, yes, you have many connections from like the CFR and the
mm,
World Economic Forum, of course, and these like Malthusian ideas and
mhm.
whatever, but he was saying that Harvard and Kissinger were really a linchpin to this. And I
Oh,
was
yeah, that's
curious
Johnny
if
Vedmore, yeah, yeah,
okay, so
yep.
I was curious if you agreed with that, if you feel like this
I
actually was, because wasn't Henry Kissinger a professor of Klaus Schwab, and Klaus
yes,
Schwab was like his teacher's pet kind of thing,
yes.
and they both have this weird like English accent from
Well
I I don't know. I know that Kissinger is from Germany, but is Klaus
no, no,
Schwab?
no, no, Schwab's from Germany, Kissinger is from Eastern Ukraine. Is Kissinger where? No, he was,
I thought
or was
he
he
was from
Polish?
Germany.
Oh gosh, now the in the comments they're gonna rail me on this because that is like, where was Kissinger born? I thought he was Eastern European. Klaus Schwab definitely born in Germany, Ravensburg, Germany. That's Johnny's area. Um, and I do believe that is extremely important for understanding who these people are, where they come from. I've never gone into like family trees, and I'm also not one who does storytelling in chronological order. I'm the old school of the inverted pyramid storytelling where you start with the biggest thing, the lead, and then everything else, the information, goes down that way. That's how I was taught as an intern. It's my crash course. So yeah, so my dives, I look into finances, like who has a connection with whom, um, but not in the deepest ways that like a Whitney Webb would do, or my concern is more with these are what they're saying and what policies are being enacted now. I'm more like in the moment of like, hey, here's the report that just came out. Here's what's fresh. Because I'm always like looking at even right now, I've been working on one all day today on the World Economic Forum, a new one about wanting to monetize things in nature. So it's like, here's what's happening now. Here's what law is coming up. Here's what legislation's going in. And here's what policies this think tank wants to enact, and here's what this other one wants to do, and the direction. So I try to put it like more in the focus, like, hey, this is what's happening right now. Or I used to cover the Senate in the United States, Senate, and all the congressional hearings, but nothing ever comes from that. I mean, you get some sound bites, and like maybe you get one person who says one thing, and like, oh, they lied, and like, yeah, accountability. No, there's nothing there. So I used to cover those thinking like that was important, but nope, that's politics again. The real power is more in the actual tech CEOs, the tech companies, because they have more power than governments, because the governments don't know what to do, except for the other parts, the more DARPA kind of parts of government,
Right.
the advanced research ones. Those ones are, but I mean, they recruit people from academia. They partner with all the big tech anyway. So I mean, those
The
are interesting.
cryptocracy, really, like in the words of Walter Board, is how I really see these things. We have all of these institutions working to an extent, working in concert, because you have I look at it as the cryptocracy is interlocking circles all the way around, right? And I think that there are elements of like what you're saying, definitely some of the government funding, then we're getting into universities and research grants, and for example, something like, and I'm not saying that this is exactly what transpired with Ralph Barrick at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, but that could be an example. You have these people that are working with other people in the government, but they're also working and funded at a university. And so, in like the intelligence agencies, which there are many of, and this is something that I've been thinking about lately, and I guess it's really obvious, but basically I see the things that are presented to us as like that everybody knows about is essentially a smoke screen, or it's like running a screen in sports, right? So like you're setting up something to disrupt the other team. And so this is one of the things that I felt like, because my friend and I on Fool Me Twice, we were talking about TWA Flight 800, right? And so it was the 30th anniversary of that, and what actually happened. So this was under the Clinton administration. And if you look at all of the scandals, horrific tragedies that happened to Americans under the Clinton administration. But what does everybody know about? What do we all remember? What were we all programmed with at that time? We remember him being on TV and saying, like getting the Inquisition, and it depends on what your definition of is.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we remember Monica Lewinsky and the pictures and the other imagery associated with that scandal. But what you don't remember, or like I didn't, was TWA Flight 800, which happened, I think it was right before the 96 Olympics, if I recall correctly, like July 17th. And then of course there was the Oklahoma City bombing, there was Waco, there was so much that went on during that presidency. So this is what I think that they do, is they do put out something for people to bite on, which is true. It is a scandal for whatever reason, which would, in that example, is the Lewinsky scandal. But then everything else fades into oblivion. So this is what I see about us learning so much about the CIA and their covert operations. Not that those are not important, And not that they did not have very important connections, but if we look at all of the other myriad intelligence agencies, we almost never hear anything about them. We hear about the CIA or the OSS or the FBI or the NSA, but that's the biggies. You don't hear
Mhm.
about the rest. So all of these things that are working together in the cryptocracy to fund and the think tanks and whatever, I think is that's how I look at it. Now, of course, I know you have much more education in that way, but that's how I picture it when you're talking about the groups that you're looking into. And the other thought that I had was this reminds me of the chicken and the egg. So you said public private partnerships, and we know
Mhm.
that there's all these NGOs and
Mhm.
non-governmental agencies. So how do these fit together? Like, who is running the ship? I know that the CEOs are powerful, but you also
Mhm.
said that DARPA military is very powerful as well.
Yeah.
And then we have secret, I mean, am I being hyperbolic? Am I being
Yeah.
tinfoil
No,
hat when I say
no,
secret
no.
societies and these other think tanks that they're all where they're networking? Like, how do you see this?
Well, there's a mishmash of things. Yes, you're right. So with public-private partnerships, and okay, so even all right, the government is doing a program. They don't have all the expertise. They don't have the money. They'll fund a university or give money to a startup, whatever, to give them, like give them do the research, do their technology, and we're trying to build something. Then when the government is not legally allowed to actually use it, then they're just like, oh, all right, we'll just take that company or that idea, and then boom, Peter Thiel pops up, or Mark Zuckerberg pops up. We've got Palantir, we've got Facebook, we got like whatever that either would come from IARPA, which is the intelligence version of DARPA, or other ones, the NSF, National Science Foundation. I think that's another big one. I mean, Eric Schmidt one of the things I did like about covering congressional hearings is listening to Eric Schmidt just say like, "Oh yeah, all of Silicon Valley was created from DARPA or from the NSF." Like it's like, yeah, we knew that, but that's cool. Even Keyhole, Google Maps was from in Pokemon Go. That's the crazy one. That was 2004. It was John Hankey was head of Niantic Labs, and like gave in Keyhole, and then that was gave birth to Google Maps for the Iraq War, and then all of a sudden that turned into Pokemon Go. Like,
Yeah, yeah. If anybody's curious, go do a search after the show, and after you like, subscribe, and share, that is, and subscribe and give Tim a follow over on the Sociable and on his X page as well. But after you do that, then go look into like the intelligence connections with Pokemon Go, and it's pretty crazy because when that first came out, I was like, oh, cool, interesting. But it turns out people were playing it in what would be considered like sensitive buildings, and that was just an ability for whoever was behind that, not officially the Pokemon company, I think, to get photos of all of these. Like, some places would even have been considered top secret. So it's an interesting story. It's not a good story, it's not a happy story, but
no,
it's
and that's
interesting.
augmented reality. But like where the think tanks come in. Well, the thing like the if you're gonna go with Club of Rome, Malthusius. You go with your Chatham House, your CFR, um, your Trilateral Commission, your World Economic Forums. They bring everyone together. And I've actually interviewed Klaus Schwab's writing partner, Thierry Mallory, the co-author of The Great Reset. And he said that the Great Reset, that phrase was his idea. I'm not sure. But, and I think that was an op as well. Because how this guy, Thierry Mallory, was all of a sudden on every single podcast and like a lot of interviews, like right at once. And I know the guy who set it up, who is the running point on that. And he writes for the Times of Israel, and it just makes me think, oof, I don't know what's going on there, but okay, neat. Anyway, but yeah, so when they set policy, the think tanks, like and they love their business people. and getting politicians and business people together. That's that public-private partnership again. So they get together, they meet, they talk about saving the planet and say world peace and all that. And this is what we got to do. And none of that means anything. So they go back to just enrich themselves. How do we do that? More public-private partnerships, which is the fusion, the merger of corporation and state, which is corporatism, which is fascism. And yeah, that's basically how we want to operate. Uh, yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So who do you almost feel like this is like a runaway ship at this point? It's just a bunch of people that like it's like a network. Some of them happen to be in government, some of them happen to be in private business, and then they have these other connections through the potentially secret societies and their
Yes.
other think tanks that they're a part of. And but this is what I wonder, like, how do you get all of these people on the same page? Because this
You-
has been in some. Okay, you don't. So expound on that a little bit. And this is something else I was wondering and listening to your other work is that do because I have heard the people that were interviewing you give their opinion as
yeah.
far as these people are not all on the same page, but I wanted to know what you think. Do you, because we do hear some people say there's competing factions vying for power, vying for this, but to us plebs, it doesn't look like there's any disagreement. It looks like we're only moving in one way, which is
Mhm.
you'll own nothing, you'll be happy, and
Right.
you're going to have a brain chip and Ready Player One and 1984 and Fahrenheit 451, like all the things, right? So what do they disagree on?
Well, Game of Thrones. That's like what I see it as. Everyone's trying to vie for their power, and they'll make alliances here and there and go on a trajectory. But the own nothing, be happy. That comes from circular economy, product as a service business model where uh, don't own anything. I don't own this microphone. I'm just renting it right now, and it goes back to the manufacturer. That is something that all business people can like almost agree with. Like, oh yeah, that's good for me because it's the subscription of everything. Like life is a
Right.
subscription.
Yeah, and just
So
in
like
case
look on that.
people didn't hear that or get that, because this is something that Tim talks about quite a bit, and I didn't know until I heard him explain it, which is the circular economy is what he's referring to, the rental model. Rent your microphone, rent your hat,
Mhm.
rent your
From North
cup.
Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, we have a comment there.
Mhm.
Little Johnny Boy said, please say hello to Tim for me and ask him if his hat is from NC. Please.
The Mast in Waynesville, North Carolina. Yep.
Perfect. I'm a North Carolina maxer. Okay. I
Mm,
I think North Carolina is the best state. It's my favorite. So and Tim's actually going to be coming here to
mm,
visit family in a couple weeks.
mhm. I'll be there.
Okay.
Right.
Continue, sir.
Yeah. So yeah, circular economy. Where was I going with it? It was about the own nothing, be happy. Yeah. Oh yeah. These are ways in which if you're a business person, it's like this. You want recurring income. You don't want to make just one big sale. You want if you're getting this recurring all the time, that the Netflix model or whatever. Great.
Right. Or this is something that Jason Barker, he must have so much material on this by now, but he talks about it a lot, which is planned obsolescence.
Mm.
And that's true. I feel like that is something that would fit in really nicely with the circular economy. Okay,
Yeah.
continue. My apologies.
Oh, it is because I mean there are certain materials they want to keep, and and the other great thing about the circular economy, which they're enacting in Europe now, when I say great is bad, um, are the digital product passports. So what it is this the shirt I'm wearing. It will have woven into it some kind of digital tag, a smart device that it says where this fabric was made, what company this came from, whom it belongs to, and then what to do with the materials when it's done. Like when I'm done with a shirt, I might just burn it. You know, I don't. In the future, there might be laws against that. Like, no, if you burn it, the tag will know that it's been burnt. You, as the leaser, you don't own it. You're gonna have to pay a fine or a penalty for that. Weirdest thing is there's an IARPA program, the Intelligence Advanced Research Project Activity from the U.S., which does all the spy tech for the CIA, and it's all the 18 uh, intelligence apparati um, agencies. They came out a few years ago. I've written a couple stories on this. A program called Smart E Pants. Smart E Pants to weave sensors, cameras, microphones, like weave them into all clothing, and they can pick up and record, even take signals from other devices constantly as you go, and be able to be machine washable, tumble dry, like, all that stuff. And now that the EU is like, oh, we got to put all this stuff in every material. I mean, like I said, beyond clothes, but any material. Still, but they say it's not going to be a geolocation. That's not a law. That's where the government is like, oh, no, we're not going to mandate that this has a geolocator on it, but we have to work with the private sector. So then private sector goes, actually, we need to know where this goes so we can better take care of it. And, the chain of custody, the chain of command, its life cycle. We need to know more about that. We're going to put that in our terms of service. That's the public private. That's when that gets, yeah. So the government's like, no, you won't demand that. But in order to use something, the company's going to be like, no, this is our rules. You're in our house now.
Right.
That's how it
Yeah.
goes.
Yeah. So, okay. We have, man, a lot of time has already gone by and we have not discussed all the things. So, one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, you said that you loved science fiction.
Mm.
Now, when you became aware of the technocratic agenda, did that really change your perspective on science fiction and maybe even start questioning some of the authors that you used to like? And then where are you with science fiction today?
Pre-programming. Yeah. Well, when I learned that the Pentagon worked with Hollywood, then I was just like, when I actually read the thing and saying, yes, we work with all these studios, and yeah, and it's all propaganda, but also we're seeding, the pre-programming. So I mean, that's the truth. That's what it is. It's so, yeah, it's like I didn't even have to put anything together. I didn't have to like have one thing over on one side, like, well, the Pentagon said this, and then all of a sudden a message came over here, like down the pipeline. No, they just said it and did it. So yeah, it's just there. It's like furniture. It's obvious. It's like, so
Yeah.
yeah, when that happened, it was just looking. Then I would look backwards at the old movies and shows, and not so much the books. I didn't read a lot of science fiction books. Computer games. Um, oh yeah, computer games. The Dig was one I loved from LucasArts, 1995. That was actually written by Steven Spielberg, and how involved he is with everything. It was about aliens and things. If everyone knows LucasArts in the 1990s and The Dig, yeah, it started. But that was one of those things when at least it wasn't unraveling in my head at the time, like, oh, everything's a lie. Like, I've already known that. So once that news came around, I was like, oh yeah, duh, obvious.
Right. It wasn't like a paradigm
The
shift
life
for you.
shattering thing. No.
Yeah. Okay, that's good because I think many of us have had some of those moments. So I wanted to ask you about this all kind of falls together, and we talked a little bit about it before the show, but w- the idea of narrative hijacking, the idea of people that are doing legitimate work the way that you're doing, and some of the other guys that I talked about that you are, that are your peers in overlapping in this research. And then we have the kookification by specific websites that you mentioned. I don't remember the name of it, but
Oh, I
like
do.
they
Yep.
they take your work, they
Mhm,
don't give you credit, and then they may spin it in a certain way. So we
mhm.
have this one element of kookifying the the work that you're doing. And personally, I think that sometimes people like that are actually, if there is an intelligence agency that's interested in discrediting, I think that that would be a perfect connection in order to do
Oh,
that. And
it'd be a wonderful way to go. Yeah, and
yeah,
monetizing, by the way. So I'll give you two publications that have done this, and I haven't even checked in on them in a long time. Just because I said my piece. I got upset. They kept taking my shit, and I was, okay, I'm just gonna ignore them. The People's Voice TV was one, and Slay News, two of the biggest egregious in print. And well, actually, People's Voice, he actually talks and does stuff. Yeah, they would just copy, paste, verbatim, rip off, plagiarize everything they say, and then twist it in a way to say like, uh, Klaus Schwab says you're useless eaters, or Bill Gates says he's demanding that, like, he's enforcing that, like, you get the agenda, and then they just twist it to make it completely crazy. And then you look at how many people follow them, and how many people, or how many like impressions they get, and how many retweets, likes, retweets, reposts, everything, and so many comments, and a lot of them, like quite a few from big accounts and people that I know, that I'm like, gosh, wouldn't you know better? This is BS. Like, so for one, it's a great clickbaity money thing, but also like, yeah, well, who's behind those? What's actually the force, kind of, whose interests does that serve? And yeah, the more noise you have in the channel, the more you look great, the more everything gets lost. So you can say the craziest thing, which is true, and it's like, yeah, okay. Or like the littlest thing that's true, which has the deepest impact, but that gets lost in the craziest thing that's being said, which has nothing to do with anything. Yeah, and that's what's going on all the time. That's just those two publications. But for alt media, I yeah, there's ones I've followed and seen them kind of rise up, and like, and I'm encouraging them, like, go, you're doing great. Like Russell Brand was one of them, and I was on his show in 2023. Yeah, for just before Davos, 2023. And just before that, I was watching his stuff for like a year or so, and I was like, "Oh, is he starting to catch on to stuff? Is he awakening?" Like, and he's a celebrity. He's got a bigger following. He's got a voice like, "Oh, we can like people will listen to, like, so let's talk." I don't know what he's doing now. Like, and it's other people
Yeah.
rising like that, and then I don't know who's behind them or what their agendas now are, motives. I can see what's being put out, and it's at the beginning, I was all behind it, and it's like, oh, it looks like you're generally starting to and then you found what you found, your niche or whatever, or you're like, oh, I'm gonna clutch onto this one thing, and that's all I'm going with, and the hell with the rest, and yeah.
Right. And I'm saying this, Tim, it's well established. I'm not an expert, okay? I'm just a regular person who's sitting in my office and thinking these things. And I do not mean to be pejorative at all, especially to you.
Mm.
So please don't be offended by this. If you feel like being offended, please don't. But the way that I see people like Russell Brand is within, and I know that you had one of your articles retweeted by Joe Rogan, which was a huge moment.
Yep.
And I don't think that that's bad, but I feel like these people either have become compromised or were compromised the whole time. And okay, and there's like this whole okay, and there's this whole continuum, right? So Russell Brand, the Hollywood, now he's alt, and then he is also friends with, I think, the Tate brothers, and the Tate brothers are best friends with Candace Owens' husband, and he's this aristocrat or something like that, and then she's the alt media queen. Like, it's very strange. So basically, the way that I would talk about these guys, like my friend Wheezy calls it Laurel Canyon 2.0. I call it Mockingbird 2.0. I feel like during the pandemic times, there was a deliberate effort to completely delegitimize the mainstream news for most people, to make them look as stupid, silly, lying as possible, which it worked. And then you had the rise of the alt media, right? So then we have Joe Rogan and Tim Pool and Candace Owens and on and on and on. And then you had other people who are like smaller content creators who were also alt media, but they never reached that status. And so I just felt like this is Mockingbird Media 2.0 with the new alt media. Oh, and then of course, Tucker Carlson is my favorite CIA agent, but you had the, the entrance of Tucker Carlson on the
Mhm.
scene, and then you have him being associated with the other, the island of misfit toys, the other people that are canceled, Thomas
Mhm.
Massey, Marjorie Trader Brown. Like,
Mhm.
it just seems so
Right.
obvious to me.
Yeah. I even because Catherine Austin Fitz is going on Tucker now too, which I'm not saying anything against her. There's a I'd go on Tucker if he invited me. Like
Oh, of
I'd be in there.
course. Yeah.
I'm like in even with the Jimmy Doors as well, and there's other ones that are just a little bit smaller, but no, and there's been so much infighting even among smaller ones, and everyone gets like said, oh, they're what's the oppo thing? The opposition, they're controlled opposition.
Right.
But yeah, that actually does happen. I'm one of the ones because even there's a weird thing where like even among some indie media, like small, that even like Johnny Vedmore, I love that him, but it's like I never see interact with other people in the sphere anymore, and I don't know what's going on with that. And then when it comes to the bigger ones like the Candaces and the Tuckers and well even I hate to say I would hate to think JP Sears, the redhead dude who does all the comedy. Like I would like to, but like now I'm starting to like, and then he even said like, "Well, I didn't do the Israel tour. They're not doing." It's like it's almost like politicians. Like there was a time where I like what you're saying, like where this is going, but all of a sudden, well, in a politician, I know you're terrible, and you're gonna let me. It's just don't go there. Like, don't invest anything in it. But yeah, but I see some people come up, and then I'm like, oh, even Ian Carroll at the very beginning. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then he got blown up. And then, like, why did he blow up like crazy and not even like,
Exactly.
like, and on Joe
Exactly.
Rogan is like, no, yeah,
Yeah, so it's like when you see them and you are one of them, you are somebody who literally has been grinding
mhm,
and doing the work. And like I said at the very beginning of this episode, watching every meeting from a Davos,
mm,
that that is dedication. And you see that people are operating at a really high level of the work that they're putting out, and they are not getting that type of engagement as an Ian Carroll overnight success,
or even I did
basically.
even like even like my own clips, they'd be stolen by a bigger exact same clips that session. No one else is watching it. I'm doing this. I put it out there, and some bigger name comes out 2 days later, gets a million something views, while mine sits at like 10,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
That's that's what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I see that as happening. But anyway, okay. However, having said that, you have been on some pretty big name shows.
Mhm.
And so let's talk about that if you want to.
Sure.
And then as far as like your interactions with these people, as well as what kind of a boost did you get to your work, or like subscribers, or maybe people supporting
Uh,
your work
mm.
financially, if at all, like as much as you would, feel comfortable discussing
No,
that.
no, nothing financially from it. I get from the co-owner of the Sociable, like nothing, almost nothing. A little bump for like what helps to live in Colombia. Oh yeah, but you're going to talk about that in American terms, like living in the U.S. No, um, but for followings, yeah, okay. So when Joe Rogan, this is in 2020, he shared one of my articles on Center for Humane Technology. Kristen Harris is he was in doing a congressional hearing. And I think what Joe Rogan was doing at the time was looking for people guests. So he's like, "Oh, I think he saw the article. He's like, "Oh, I might want this guy as a guest." So he shared it. I remember when that happened because I was sitting in my gazebo in the back in Colombia in the woods and in the mountains, and all of a sudden I just looked at Twitter at the time, not X, and I was like, Joe Rogan. Oh, that's another phony parody account. I'm like, oh no, it's him. And then it would go for like the notifications go to 20, 20, click, clear, 20, 20. And it's like, this is what people with big followings, I guess, have all the time. I
Right.
didn't know what to do with it. So I just started to walk circles around the house. I was smoking my pipe, walking in circles. I'm like, well, that just happened. I don't know what to do right now.
It's gotta be a weird feeling, right? Of,
Yeah.
like, having somewhat, maybe a feeling not exactly anonymity, but a not that kind of audience, and then
Yeah.
it must feel very vulnerable, I would
Well,
think.
yeah, because you go back and you look at it, and it's like, oh God, did I make a typo or did I get anything inaccurate? Because now there's all these eyes on it. And it's happened a few times. It's actually, I said like how people have taken big stuff from me, but there's also been big accounts who've given me really good credit and shared wide. And even a couple years ago, a Davos meeting, I did a clip on Queen Maxima of the Netherlands talking about needing digital ID for proof of vaccination and stuff. And huge account, Peter Sweden, I think was the account, shared it, and
Yeah.
Elon Musk commented on it. So I got a comment from Elon Musk on that, and it says Tim Hinchliffe on the video. And that was one that just there's been a few clips that I put out there with, and I always put the article underneath. So I record the clips because I want to put them in articles. It's part of the story, and then I put the story underneath on the thread. And yeah, when that happens, it's just another one of those walk around the house for a little bit. There's no way I can even look at the social media because it's just blowing up, boom, 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 and it's just okay. But for followers, no, it doesn't gain anything. It doesn't. And people don't actually even click on the articles either. Because I mean, I do have Google Ads.
Yeah.
No one's. I mean, I use ad blocker myself on Sociable, so I don't. I encourage people to use ad blockers. There was a time where I 2021 actually got in 1 month I got $1,000 in a month on Google Ads from the articles. And I was like, wow. Now that's probably down to $12 if you're gonna talk finances. So yeah, that's I don't make money from the clicks, the likes, like no, no.
Okay, so even if you get this temporary boost from a huge account, it hasn't really translated to you in, like, even a ton more followers or
Well, but it does give it opportunities, I guess, like a
yeah,
little
for
bit,
sure.
especially from producers. Um, because even a couple years ago, um, no, just this year, Dr. Drew, I was on his show in February. From I was doing coverage on the WEF annual meeting in January, but how the producer got wind of it was that she saw Noor bin Laden on Bannon's War Room, Steve Bannon's War Room, and Noor bin Laden, great journalist, love her. Um, and she was saying, "Well, you should go check out Tim Hinchliffe's work on the Sociable." And then so the producer from uh, uh, um, it was Dr. Drew,
Dr.
the
Drew.
producer. Yeah, the producer. I'm not getting all the names mixed up. The producer from Dr. Drew just reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, was she talking about you?" And I said, "Yeah." And then she said, "All right, let's get you on." So there's that connection there.
Definitely. So it is potential like network
Networking.
connection
Yeah.
and yeah, getting your work recognized by some of these bigger accounts. So how did you feel going on with Dr. Drew? Did you feel like, listen, I'm not sure where this guy stands necessarily,
Oh yeah.
but it's a good opportunity for me to present my work?
Yes. Because I mean, I've seen some of his recent stuff, and I was like, all right, cool. And I think the first thing I said to him when we were on, I said, I used to listen to your show, Loveline, with Adam Carolla in the '90s when it'd be, as a teen, before I went to bed and you going to
Yes,
school.
on MTV.
And then yeah, it's like in the radio show too. Like so, like I was all right. That's Dr. Drew. That's cool. Um, but no, I mean, because I was on, like, I was the marquee person, but the people in front of me was, Adam Nimoy, who's Leonard Nimoy's Spock's son, and the father of the guy from, Offspring, and Sean Stone, Oliver Stone's kid who's been on lots of he does yeah, he does good
Yeah,
stuff.
for sure. And Oliver
Or
Stone has done some
yeah.
good work, especially as far as like some of his Vietnam
Oh, yeah.
work
And so,
and
like, being in that company, I
discussions.
was like it was, "Oh, wow, I'm with these people, and we're doing this," and I put on the Klaus Schwab voice for a second, like trying to get like try to put the information out there, but I like, oh, your audience is huge, and like, well, can we make? I didn't even try to. yeah, I'm trying to make it interesting, but within my own personality and research. So yeah, but as far as his politics and things, or his stances, I didn't really know much about him. But like going back a year or two, being on Steve Bannon's show, that was something now I don't think I would do, because I mean Steve Bannon was in prison at the time, so his uh, transhumanist editor guy, Joe Allen, whom I really he's a g- we've been well together. He's always been nothing but cordial and kind and generous. And so I love talking with him just about technology. We were talking about
Yeah.
AI, we're talking about globalists, we're talking about the UN, we're talking about the WEF, and that's it. No politics whatsoever,
Right.
or any shady connections with anything. So yeah, I was happy to do that. But if I were to be invited now, I don't knowing what I know now about that. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand. So, okay. Speaking of, let's something that we also had touched on before we got into the show was, let's talk about, because our overall theme for that last segment was maybe people using your work either just for clicks or actually in order to dilute the message, the narrative from you, and to kookify the message that you're trying to present and the work that you're doing. Now, with that, on another angle, I guess, is this idea of fear versus hyperbole, or excuse me, like hyperbole versus fact. And I think that in the same vein of seeing people either deliberately trying to make the space look some kind of way, or to dilute the message or kookify it, that there's a lot of fear mongering, and one of the big things that people say is that fear sells, right? Fear gets clicks. So as far as maybe a high level, like not every single detail, but what do people get wrong that maybe is hyperbolized, and like they don't need to be that worried about it, or maybe need to have a more nuanced take?
Mm.
I mean, because these people are truly presented as supervillains, and maybe they actually are, and maybe there isn't much hyperbole at all, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on, like, what are you seeing, if anything, be hyperbolized and being used to create fear in people simply for, to get clicks
Mhm.
or attention, or whatever.
This is one of those things where I went back and forth in 2016, 2017 on Trump with was someone will say something, Trump said this, and I'd go, "Oh, I can't believe he said that. Oh my god, I gotta go listen to and I'd read the headlines, the stories. There was a racist comment or a comment that was untowards or whatever. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? And then go into the source, and then it's like, well, that didn't happen at all. I'm just using Trump as a reference there. Don't like the guy. Just for the record.
Right. Yeah,
But
but you
so when it comes to anything like with the fear mongering, the hyperbole, it's when people start to say like this organization demands this or it orders this or it says this is what they said, and then it, you look at what their story says and you look for, okay, so where's the source that they say it? Is it a video clip? Is it a written thing? Like where is it that they said that? And then you don't find it. And so just like yeah, there's that meme or that yeah that goes around all the time when about Klaus Schwab and like or there's the one that, some weirdo on the beach in the skimpy white thong kind of thing. That's not Klaus
yes,
Schwab.
he's dressed
Yeah,
up as a bride on like a
yeah,
nude
yes,
beach
yeah,
kind of,
yeah.
but he's wearing a banana hammock.
And then like maybe next to it it'll say we have too many useless eaters, and they'll say that's from the Great Reset, and it's just no. So what I do is I present all right, here's what the WEF said, here's what the UN said, here's the link, go to the source, and I'll quote it. I'm very visual in my articles. I do the block quotes, I'll put an image or a video, do a huge block quote. That's what they're saying. The other stuff, you know, my interpretation, my perspective, and I always label it as such, a perspective. That's my perspective. But and I do usually two different headlines. I have the main headline, which is the actual news, what's being said, and underneath the main image of the article, there's a secondary headline that says perspective, and like this is what I think it means. This is what my analysis of it. So I'm clearly showing, what the difference is there. And so anything that's in quotes, I'm quoting exactly them. I'm interpreting, but I leave it up. It's like anytime someone actually tries to say that they know what's going on or they're the masters, like who's actually got a handle on all this, like okay. So Johnny Vedmore, he said I was an expert in certain things, and I never, expert to me because like that's what Fauci is, and I don't want to be a Fauci, like so. That's but you got to just watch out for what people claim and then just go to the sources. That's why actually I don't really read news. I don't listen to news. I don't read news. And if I do catch a whiff of anything, I'll go like, oh, where'd you get that from? What clip? Or was it a report? Is this a study? And I'll go right to that and just get it from the horse's mouth, but not from your spin cycle,
Yes, and that is one of the things that I actually wanted to ask you as far as, do you always just try to go to the source instead of, and I think it adds a lot of validity to what you're saying as well. You're like, no, I literally watched them say that. I quoted it. I clipped it out. I heard them. This is not hyperbole.
40 minutes of boring stuff just to see 30 seconds of something that,
Yeah. Okay. So let me ask you this. So even though, I probably maybe have been guilty of sharing a meme like that or something from time to time, but even if we are being hyperbolic, does it really matter if I do think that he is walking on the beach as a bride in a banana hammock and talking about useless eaters, or I'm kidding because I know it's important to get it right, but isn't that their sentiment?
Yeah, I mean, it's a caricature. It's fun to do that, and that's actually kind of what I like almost about like AI slop when it's so egregious and over the top. Like it's parody, it's satire. Well, I can appreciate that because that's art. But you're actually gonna put it in a way, present it in a way that seems more journalistic, more factual. Then that gets a little. There's a line. This is where places like the EU, the UN, they love this area because they don't have a sense of humor. So, if the one time you use AI to tell a joke, they'll say that's a deep fake, that's misinformation, disinformation, hate speech, malinformation. We need regulation. We need to stomp this out. And we'll go after we need to demonetize you, derank you, just defile you in whatever way we can. When it's just a freaking joke. So there's a lot. I mean, art but it is because what you're doing is you're drawing out the core, their essence, their soul when you show things like that.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna present it in a way that's like that's actually him, no. But the one that he's in the Darth Vader outfit, that is actually him. He was like a Norwegian like honorary university thing or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah. And it is hard to tell in today's day and time what is real, because the person on the beach actually does look like him. But I figured it wasn't. So, okay. Now, again, I'm operating with these questions at a very high level. I know you've done so much deep diving, but one of my questions, so my buddy Doc Rock shared a meme with me, or a tweet or something the other day, and it was basically like, so what is the point? You own everything, you have all the land, all the assets, everything is, like where you're talking about tokenized and on the blockchain, and all, to what end? Because you have a population of Earth, like, okay, some people say that they want to kill, half of us or whatever that even looks like, but So you have shattered economies, you have a desolate population that's dependent on the teat of big government and private businesses. And to what end? Is it because these people who actually don't agree on a lot and who are Game of Thronesing and vying for succession and, order out of chaos and this Machiavellian ideology because they're sadists and they want slaves? Like, what is the point? This is the things I never understand. People that are control freaks or try to tell other people what to do is like, get a life.
This
It's
is
exhausting.
this is every time that someone interviews me, like I end up asking them this question. Like my question's always like, all right, the Schwabs of this world, the Kissingers, the old guys, the Larry Ellisons, um, the ones who are just about to croak and die or who already have, why will you keep pushing for these insane things until your death? The responses I get back is always it's a spiritual thing, a spiritual war. I look at it, first of all, personality, narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths, that's just your nature. I look at it from that secret society point of view, order of chaos. And I also look at the hermeticism, the principle of the hermetic principle of polarity that shows that there cannot be light without dark. There can be no sharp without dull. There can be no good without evil. One has to exist for the other to exist. There has to be, it'll teeter tatter, it'll go up and down from one way, but they're the exact same thing on the spectrum, on the pole. They're just opposite. They're polar opposites of the same thing. Hot and cold. So no matter what you do in life, no matter how great you want to create a utopian society, someone's going to throw a wrench in the gears to just mess it up. I think of Donnie Darko. What they're saying, like, what the point of one of the stories, and he's in a classroom. He's like, well, they just wanted to see the world burn. Or was that Batman? Some people just want to see the world burn,
Right.
and some people want to put the world together. And I mean, if you were just to have the utopian society, and the best of all you could do, you get bored and you would create destruction. Like you would, and if everything is so destructive, like, no, I don't want this. Let's create something better. And it's different in time will tell. But for more down to earth on what do they want now, like what trying to achieve now is, I think they just want everything for themselves. Like, just too many people don't want to take care of them, don't want people, blah, blah. Get rid of a lot of people. They're actually useless now because we got all the technology. And we want nature for ourselves. But then that doesn't even satisfy me. No, it's like, yeah, you have your paradise. You already do have your mansions, your yachts, your islands, whatever. So no, it is. I, I y- I agree with everyone who says it's more of a spiritual thing. It's not just legacy, or it's like digital immortality. These people are not just digital, but just immortality. The goal is to live forever, which goes back to my very first article in the Sociable, Gilgamesh, that folly, that fallacy of wanting to live forever, and your quest for it will always end up in your destruction. But I mean, life can be extended now longer, whether through technology or through drugs or through other kinds of treatments. And I think that that's what they're going for. And if you're going to live for a very long time, people who come and go, the plebs, the ones under you, they're like ants. So it really doesn't matter what happens to the ants, to us, but if there are too many of them, then they're going to crawl all over your shit and they're going to be like, oh, get away. Shoo, flies, shoo.
Shoo shoo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the best I can come up with. I don't have an answer for it. I ask everyone the same thing. That's one of the biggest things that is a great question, Ashley. And that it bothers me to no end. I just have never gotten a solid answer for anyone. I see that's not one of those ones where I said, here trying to get from point A to point B and like, I'm connecting something like when they just come out and say it. Yes, this is what we're doing. The Pentagon's working with Hollywood. They, no, they're not saying why we're doing this. They mask it in, um, oh, we're doing this for the good of the planet and for nature. Yeah, climate change is a huge one. That's the excuse though, but they got their own shit. They got their agendas and And the more you look into like even the dialogue club, Peter Thiel's dialogue club, you look into what Sam Altman gets into, like you just go into these people's the edge things with Epstein and Musk, and
Right, the Edge
it's
Foundation.
just everyone knows each other. Everyone has the same, like, you are not part of that club. You're not in, like, they will not tell you. There's Chatham House rules. There's the, the Bilderberg stuff. There's the Bohemian Grove stuff. There's this weird, yeah, you're not part of it, and they don't think like you.
Right. And I think it's difficult to, as a regular person, it's difficult to comprehend because it just feels like essentially in whatever way they're deciding to at this time that they want to control everything about the rest of the human population and have all the wealth. But it's like, don't you have enough already? Like,
Well, maybe it's to make sure that we don't have any, so there's no uprising. That's like an Ender's. I love science fiction. Ender's Game. Why did you hit him when he was on the ground? Well, the first hit was to make sure he went on the ground. I kept hitting. The second one was to make sure he never fought me again. That's kind of where let's see that going.
Yeah, it may be that. And I do think about this as well, because the other thing that really doesn't seem to make sense to me is like, okay, so let's say that they want, Hawaii for themselves, and they want the Massachusetts coast and Florida and all of the Appalachian Mountains and whatever. Okay, they want that, right? But and they go after pollution. They're going after meat and land and farmers and things like that. But what they don't do is to clean up like forever chemicals and hold people such as like DuPont chemical or Dow chemical or whatever accountable. But it's like, if you live here too and you actually care about the planet, and assumably you're not actually a lizard person and you do still need clean water and clean air, then what are you doing? Why are you not making moves to clean this stuff up, even for you and your spawn? It makes no sense.
It's a good word, spawn. No, I think it's a different game, and because I do go into these in thinking that, and like, yeah, why would you do that? And exactly what you're saying. Well, why not do that? And because this is going to happen. And in the end, like, really, it all. It's the most obvious one is they're energy sucking vampires. Like, they get on, like there's some kind of fuel that fuels them, and a need that is just chaos and fear, and that's gives that thing for lust for power, that I don't know what just holds it, that like, are you even human? Like, it's.
I mean, I have really tried to like tamper my conspiracy. I'm still a conspiracy minded person, right? But I I have a good friend who has sort of had a couple of good friends who have had an evolution of kind of breaking out of the conspiracy space. And I do understand that in a lot of ways, because I think a lot of it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. There's so much hyperbole. There's so much, like, if you start looking into the root of a very famous person in the conspiracy space, of like what they're saying, then maybe you don't find as much there.
Well, maybe you will, because I mean, like another sci-fi V for Vendetta. What was done to me was monstrous, and they created a monster. Abuse creates an abuser, and that's a cycle that keeps going. It could be simple as that. And I'm with you. I don't. I'm not trying to be the, like the energy sucking vampire. Like, yeah, okay, that's. I don't know how else to describe. That's what. But how you get there with the mechanism, So.
Yeah.
Abuse.
No,
Abuse.
for sure. And I think there's a lot of, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you've probably looked into this more than I have, but as far as like a lot of these very, very, very wealthy families, there appears very much to be elements of generational abuse from generation to generation. And that oftentimes we think of these these people, these kids, as having such luxury. But I do often think that there's probably a lot more darker, elements to their lives than perhaps we realize. And that is pure speculation on my part only. Okay. So I know that we do have some examples of generational abuse, or at least suspicions and allegations in some case, but I just want to be very clear that's my own personal speculation. I'm not saying that I know this for a fact, but it does seem to be that it does seem to be thematically fitting, potentially, I would say.
I mean, look at Anderson Cooper and the Vanderbilts. Go look
Correct.
at what's going on there. Look at even the Reiners, the Carl Reiner, Rob Reiner, and just for those more contemporary things.
Yeah, well, and that's very true. And like, we may be off base here, and again, speculation, but you had the clip, and I know this doesn't prove anything, but Al Franken made a very inappropriate joke to Rob Reiner at a Friars Club roast about Rob Reiner and his father's relationship, and essentially made the allegation or the joke that Rob Reiner's father let him, he lent him out to his friends. And then we know that his son went on to be a very troubled young man. And sometimes that happens. But the other thing is that sometimes there is an element of abuse when someone turns to addiction because they don't have the emotional intelligence or the skills or the support or anything needed to manage that trauma. So oftentimes drugs are the case. Again, I don't know.
Yeah.
This is pure speculation, but there does seem to be an element of that, at least in, my observation on some of these things.
Yeah. And there's programs that have been done, CIA ones and off budget black book ones, and compartmentalizing and severe trauma and how to create multiple disassociate personality.
Dissociative disorder. Yes. And actually, I just bring this up anytime I can, and people that listen to me often are probably like, oh boy, here we go. But the book is called Ritual Abuse in the 21st Century by James Randy Noblet and Pamela Perkins Noblet. They were editors on this book. So it's a series of essays. But I'm bringing it up because, first of all, it was I struggled to get through it. Okay. I did. I'm not great. I'm not a fast reader when it comes to textbook-like nonfiction. So just to say that, but they go on to talk about exactly what you said, which is the studies and the work that have been done in order to create dissociative identity disorder. And also what you said, they compartmentalize. They literally can create rooms to lock away this information and the personalities, and other personalities don't know.
Which is exactly how these governments and some corporations operate. You can work on one thing with a coworker and have no idea what they're working on over here. It's it's compartmentalized.
Yeah. So, and that is well documented. And this guy was I don't know if he's still practicing, but a medical doctor or medical psychologist. And he was also in the military, and he is basing his work, Randy Noblet, that is, off of some of his own clinical practice, as well as other things that he saw and observed. And then, of course, the other relationships that he made with people who were in the field, such as author Tim Tate. So anyway, that I think he does have some legitimacy there. But moving on. So all that to say, if I could just summarize in our fear versus knowledge, or like the hyperbole conversation, it seems like a lot of the hyperbole out there, you believe, has like the general point, right? And that it's like getting into satire almost. But if you want to really know what they're saying, then you need to go to the source, or you could go to your work where you clearly outline the source and the clip.
If you want to go to my work, because I've got my own spin, I got my own biases, but I will show you where I got my information from.
Right.
I will give you the exact text, link, video, whatever, audio, and you can go find it out. So I think what I try to do with my work is to make it easily digestible, show you what's going on. It's surface to mid level. I'm not deep. I go deep into stuff, but I want to show surface to mid level, just to like, hey, this is what's going on. Here's the source. Go look at that. Like, so yeah. And for hyperbole, like others, yeah, I love satire. I love humor. Just as long as you're not disingenuous, like trying to trick people. You can manipulation is such a funny word. You can use manipulation to show good, like, or another V for Vendetta quote: "Artists tell lies to show lies to tell the truth," or whatever. Yeah, that's a brilliant way of doing it. But you got to be artful about it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So, we have gone a little bit over. Do you have a few more minutes?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. So, one of the things that I wanted to touch base with you about, and I know that you said you haven't been really digging into the Iran conflict,
Mm.
so we can touch base on the Ukraine conflict, because in my conspiratorial brain, I feel like things are very convenient. The entire conflict with Iran has been super convenient. It ties in the International Energy Agency. I told you about the white paper that I'm going to send you, and that there is rhetoric there that sounds lockdown adjacent, 70s rationing adjacent.
Mm.
As far as the fuel situation, and that 20% of the world's fuel was traveling through that strait, not really happening anymore. And then it also just happens to be popping off between Saudi Arabia and Yemen again. And now we may have, what was the other thing that's going on is, Iran is Israel's continuing to bomb Lebanon. They're continuing to bomb Gaza. They just started bombing Syria. The United States and Israel are bombing Iraq because of Iranian militias, blah, 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 whatever. It's a tangled web over there, but I have been referring to it essentially as like a boiling pot. And I feel like we are one assassination of Archduke Ferdinand away from things popping off. But I feel like it's a very convenient timing. This is also when we see BRICS coming together, right? We have the BRICS meeting coming up in India. We have Iran really getting on board. Oh, now also we have Donald Trump threatening to bomb Oman. We have Donald Trump is now having a lover's quarrel with South Korea. We have China that's trying to make a move and bring South Korea back. I'm just saying, and we have, Venezuela, Cuba's on the radar.
I was going to say that. Thank God we invaded. We took out Maduro in Venezuela to get that oil and get that to keep the energy going for one thing, part of the technate. But yeah,
right. And so all this to say, things are crazy. Of course, we have this 5-year-old or 4-year-old conflict, however old it is, between Russia and Ukraine. We have all these other crazy narratives that are coming out of this, like the United States is running low on munitions, and like there's just so much going on. I just feel like it's very convenient. It's very convenient for the sundowning of the American empire to make them look completely incompetent from a military perspective. And then you have people saying, well, the United States, other than the Gulf War, and I guess Gulf War I, hasn't won a military conflict since World War II, with the exception of that. And so that already doesn't look great, but we know that war is the health of the state.
Yep.
It makes money.
Yes.
So, but I have never seen the United States be presented as so militarily incompetent. And then adding in this insane rhetoric up and down, back and forth from Trump. And I feel like there's this wealth transfer, insider trading aspect. There's the sundowning of the American empire. There
Mhm.
is sowing doubt. There's creating vulnerability because we had the USS Abraham Lincoln that was deployed and they were supporting with the conflict in Iran. And now we have these guys that are going overboard because they've been deployed too long and they have terrible food and they're losing energy. And then we have them being relieved with a ship that's already been deployed for 100 days, the USS George Washington. And now we're leaving the Pacific vulnerable when we have not left that vulnerable for a couple of decades now. So I apologize for my ramble. I'm just saying
No.
all this stuff going on. And then so that's what I think is going on here. It's sundowning, but it's squeezing the entire world, and the entire financial market feels like if something doesn't change, it's about to go off a cliff. Meanwhile, it's just slowly boiling. It's slowly
Mhm.
boiling until when? They're like, we have weeks before the United States oil reserves are used up. I have no idea. But what is your thought on, and maybe not even that, because I know it hasn't been your area that you've been studying lately, but what do you think is going on with the Ukraine-Russia conflict? Is it also to facilitate some other major changes worldwide? Or,
Yeah.
you
First off,
you
first off on entire depletion, sundowning. Um, this is Hervoy would go to the multipolar world order thing. And I agree with that too. The U.S. isn't supposed to be a superpower anymore. That was even on the WEF to tie in the circular economy, the Own Nothing, Be Happy, that video. I think number 2, or was it number 3 or number 2? The U.S. by 2030, the U.S. is no longer a superpower. It's a shared thing. So that it's a controlled demolition. Yeah, so we're depleting everything here, there, weakening all that in order for a new force and power to step in. Um, when it comes to the Ukraine Russia thing, oh, that is, I'm seeing it spill over into Colombia now, which is nuts. Um, because the Ukraine Russia war is where drones all of a sudden became everything, drone warfare.
yes.
Eric Schmidt came out. He was at the German one, or was the um, safety Munich conference, whatever. And he was talking about, like, if you're a government and your armies, like, if you're buying tanks and like, don't stop doing that. He's like, drone warfare is where it's at. He's like, because yeah, you probably build the stuff and you know what, yeah. Um, that with AI, like, you can do decision making with AI. Just bzz, 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 all these strikes. Just build a million drones, and I mean, these are those kamikaze drones. Just bzz, 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 do whatever, or disrupt communications. That is starting to go over even in guerrilla warfare now in Colombia, because we just got a new president in Colombia, and he's taken up. His name is Abelardo de la Espriella, and he's going against the rebels hardcore, right, like in his first 2 weeks. So
And he's being considered right wing. Is that
yeah, oh yeah, definitely. He's right there with Trump and him are tight. He also was a lawyer for all the business people who did business with I don't think it was the cartels, but maybe the paramilitaries, like, shady in that way. And I think he's trying to model himself off of Bukele in El Salvador.
Well,
Um,
and so doesn't he have, and sorry to interrupt you, but doesn't he
Mhm.
have some overlap with Marco Rubio in that way? Because Marco Rubio's brother-in-law was known to be involved in the Narcos,
This I
and
don't know.
okay, I have another article I can send you on that,
Nice.
and Marco Rubio also has been very intimately involved with what is happening from the Trump administration in Latin
Mhm.
America, but that's also been much less publicized. I know you know that, but continue, please.
Yeah, but I'm gonna say that from going bleeding from Ukraine and Russia over to South America, are it was just was it yesterday, 2 days ago? The rebels in South America, they're using drones. They attacked police that they were killing, and they injured a few police. I mean, they kidnapped a few other ones, but the stories I was reading, it was in Spanish, so, and it was really quick. So I don't know if it's as what they call yellow journalism. Amarillista is like right in the moment, and like I don't know what's confirmed, but saw the pictures, saw the videos, and the police were just it's a national police, so it's not like a local state trooper or account. No, national police is almost militarized. They're freaked the hell out by these drones that are coming from the rebels. I'm wondering where the rebels are learning and getting this from. That'd be a great story for actually know lots of journalists down in Colombia, so I'm gonna ask them about that. Where are these guys getting their drones? Where are they getting their training from?
Yeah.
Because in the old days, it used to be they would go to Cuba and they would learn from the Soviets, and how to do that stuff. And even I think I thought there was even some parallels with the IRA in Ireland, like how to do that kind of warfare, or vice versa. I'm not sure. But yeah,
I
but the thing is, they're getting the technology, they're getting the drones, they know how to use them, they know how to go in there and blow shit up. So that's
yeah.
what. But I don't know what level of AI is getting involved and stuff, but it's coming. That's the landmines used to be the biggest thing in Colombia. It's still like there's tons of landmines everywhere, but that was like the scourge of the human life of civilians and stuff. But now drones, like it's getting weird.
It's getting very weird and very complicated. So that was one of the things Monica Perez had shared an article about, or made a statement or something on X about the weapon shortage. And I replied back and I said, I was wondering what your thoughts were about this, because I'm always curious what Monica thinks.
Mm.
And I think she's good at piecing together and, kind of speculating with what the narrative could be. What's the play? And I said, what is your thoughts on this whole we're running low on munitions story? I find it to be very weird. I find it to be very well publicized, which of course it fits with these other things that we've been talking about, but just for for how things used to be, that's unheard of. And she said she thought that was the drones were part of this narrative in order to say, like, oh, well, we can't do this with missiles anymore because we're out of missiles and it's going to take X amount of time to
Mhm.
uh to re up the supplies, but what we can do is use drones. And so we need more drone funding, more drone technology. And I thought that was really interesting. I had not considered that angle. I
Mm.
was thinking that it merely was part of this sundowning of the United States and the military
Mm.
presence. But I think that the drone thing, especially with what you're saying, could be an interesting connection.
Yeah, because really, yeah, as I said, Eric Schmidt, Google dude, Pentagon dude, just he's saying like tanks are obsolete. Like even though all these big things, if you want it in the future, it's about missiles, or not missiles, drones. But even before that, even before it becomes kinetic, he was before. One of those little snippets I got out of a congressional hearing. He said his one of his biggest fears is a world war that takes place within a fraction of a second. This AI system over here deploys something, an algorithm deploys something that the other one picks up, and they're doing that combat, but it happens in a fraction of a second. Whoever comes out on top with the best algorithm has the deterrence. They're the ones like game over, you know. So it's either complete annihilation, or the other side knows there's no way we can win. It's complete surrender. No shots have to be fired, but this whatever side has the best algorithms is going to dominate. And it took me a long while to like figure out what that meant, but it's like, yeah, it's it's like me. I would the equivalent of you take out a dagger and someone has a machine gun, and you look at each other and square off, and yeah, surrender. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. So that this potentially could come to algorithmic
Yeah.
betterment, which is, I find that interesting and not really something that I had thought about, because I'm always thinking, like, how much division is actually out there? How much cooperation is actually out there? Like, and I feel like in one of your episodes with Hervoye, he said this, like, who is in on what, right? Because I feel like maybe Iran isn't in on the conflict that we're seeing.
Mm.
Maybe they're not. But what if they were? They are literally being referred to as a new superpower. They are in the catbird seat, whereas 5-6 months ago, they supposedly were not in the catbird seat. So isn't it really convenient for them? And again, this is pure speculation, guys. I really don't know. I just am thinking about all of these other bullet points and just trying to figure out the puzzle. I'm just trying to find something that makes sense in my mind. So, but I back to the algorithm, like who has the better algorithm? I find that to be fascinating too, because one of the eternal boogeymen that the United States is squared up against is it's always China. China. And then even on libertarian leaning shows, where I don't know, I guess Judge Napolitano is kind of libertarian leaning. I mean, I know he's a fan of Ron Paul and he does have some people in that space, and he talks to a wide range of people, but he talks to a ton of former intelligence people. And one of the things that they are often talking about is, and like Jeffrey Sachs, for example, right, who seems to be certainly part of the in group, or maybe like working for the other team or something at times, but he makes a lot of good points. But they will talk about how good the technology is in China, how much further advanced they are, from light rails to their electric cars to their you name it. They just talk about them and how much in infrastructure investment China has done, and planning, and the lack thereof in the United States. And in that case, they have been presented as the boogeyman, and also this like, oh, is China going to take over Taiwan and that's going to start a war, and the United States can't stand for Taiwan getting bullied by China because all our chips come from Taiwan, or like whatever the story is. And so I just feel like maybe that would be
that's
that
what
would
China,
make sense.
That's what China's got with the, I'd say one thing about those commie bastards is that they don't appreciate corruption, in their tight knit thing. Yeah, so unless it's their own corruption, I mean, like if there's something that's impeding their agenda, they're gonna get rid of that. And we got tons of corruption in America. And there's one other point. With the when I was talking about the algorithms, the AI like doing a split second war. Yeah, that's assuming that we actually have almost equal kind of systems to go against each other. Another thing that's coming up, it's not off topic, but it's not kinetic the biological warfare stuff. How AI can just come up with new diseases, new biological threats, new compounds, new whatever, and you not know where they came from. So, like, if you want to take over, there's also the information war. It's a battle on a million fronts. But yeah, if you just wanted to just target a certain group, ethnic group, or whatever with a certain bug, virus, disease, boom, take that and where did it come and hide where it comes from. You can do that. Then you run the AI to do the messaging and the messing up the digital forensics, so you don't know where it comes from. So yeah, there's a million billion different ways to go about that.
We're on a slippery slope here. Is that fair to say?
Yes. Yeah. A lot of ice and no ice pick, and no Leon Trotsky would. I was going to do a Trotsky joke there. No. Yeah, it's slippery.
Yeah. So, and I think that that's one of the things in some of your other conversations that I've been listening to that I do find interesting is kind of pointing out, and I'm curious if you agree with this, that yeah, it is happening. However, it's the likelihood that it's always going to be like this. Like, I talk about the wheel of time all the time, right? Like things change. It's moving. So it's, even if that is the goal, is like to live forever and to just to run the show, like be completely in charge or whatever, like nothing lasts, and we have the old adage or the cliche that the only thing that is certain is change, or so I probably butchered it, but you know what I mean. Like
nothing constant is change.
Yes.
Well, you were talking about the wheel of time. For me, it's a pendulum. not the complete, but yeah, it goes in whatever analogy you want to make. Yeah, and it's like the old John Prine song. It's a half an inch of water. You think you're gonna drown. That's the way the world goes round. You're up one day, the next you're down. Yeah, I love John Prine. So yeah, and like I was saying about the principle of polarity, you can't have good without evil. So yeah, and that's order out of chaos, chaos order. It's so anyone who's like, oh, what's the point? And this is the way it's going. It's always gonna be bad. No, it's gonna turn around. It's time. Eh, With time, it's going to happen. No one knows how much time, like you're talking about the wheel of time, but there's going to be something either organic, something from the people, something from elsewhere outside. Something is going to happen. There's going to be a force because there's always going to be that, and it's going to mess it up. So yeah, it's going to change. You can make it. You can be the Gandhi thing. You must be the change you wish to see in the world. You can do that. You can sit back and just say, "Oh, screw it. I don't know. Give me the. I'll eat the bugs. I'll live in the pod. I'll have the UBI. And I'm happy that okay, you could do that. Others will fight, die, be martyrs. Others will look to them as their heroes and yeah, they're martyrs and rise up. Or then when in the moment of there's something bad, we have nothing to do. Then a meteor or a comet, an act of God comes and wipes out the bag. So it's and whatever. It's there's always something going to change.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the things too, like from a biblical perspective, and I know you've had people ask you about that as far as like what is your, kind of stance on religion, and you can
Do
share
you mind
that
if
or
I
not.
step out just for 1 sec for 30 seconds?
Yeah, yeah, go for it.
I'll just put on. I'll be right back.
Yeah, no worries.
Sorry.
Okay, so what I was saying to Tim is that as far as what he's talking about, people have asked him on some of the shows that I have watched him doing as far as a religious perspective. And, he's had his own journey and he can share that with us if he wants to, whatever. But that's one of the things that I think about in terms of where all of this goes is like if you subscribe to the Bible, and again, guys, I'm not a biblical scholar, I'm not preaching to you at all. This is just my thought process. But if we do subscribe to that, then hasn't this already been foretold? Isn't this the way that it was always going to go? And if so, then I don't think we have anything to worry about. I don't know. That's something that I think about quite often is yes, I do believe that these things are transpiring and that whatever the technocrats or the predator class, the powers that shouldn't be, however we want to refer to them, whatever they're up to, I think that even if they are successful in an earthly sense, that this was foretold. Like I do not see them ultimately being successful, even though that doesn't mean that human beings won't suffer in the meantime.
Mm,
Welcome back.
thanks. Yeah, but the thing is though about the timing of things. That's what I worry about. Like golden ages and Kali Yugas, like and how long those ones last. Those you know we had it great for a while. Like in our lifetimes or our parents or grandparents' lifetimes, like, oh, you had it rough that time. Oh, it was great for a while. These are such short spans of time for us.
Yeah, that's true.
But on the
Crisis to
grand scheme of
crisis.
things, yeah, on the grand scheme of things, though, like I wouldn't even know what to call the last, maybe even the last 2,000 years. Like, is this one like, are we going up? We're going down? Is it? Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I think that's a good point too. And this is one of the things that I've been kind of mulling over and saying quite a bit lately is that, with the benefit of hindsight,
Mhm.
in 5,000 years, they'll know if it was the last 2,000 years that was, this very tumultuous time or whatever. But sometimes it takes so long to really have clarity on what actually was transpiring. And I do think about that sometimes because I get nostalgic for the 90s and I'm like,
Mhm.
man, what a vibe. And it was to an extent, but ever since the founding of the United States, depending on what we want to look at, like there
Mhm.
have been issues that would at the very least indicate that you didn't have the freedom that you thought you had. at least for certain individuals, right? So we know about in World War II, like you can't own gold anymore. Okay. You've got to turn in your gold to the government and we set the price, buddy. Okay. That's not freedom. So that doesn't mean that in 2020, everything was totally free and good. And then we lost it in 2020. That means that as of 1945, you had to turn in your gold to the American government. If you were a Japanese American, that meant you got rounded up and put into a camp. Exactly. If you in like you had brought up the Vietnam War earlier, so this happened to obviously be a very long conflict, and the draft time was less than the entire conflict. But if you got drafted into the Vietnam War, then that means you're not free. That means your ass is getting shipped off to Vietnam for at least a 1-year term, and you may be on the ground. You may be being used as bait so somebody above you can have a higher body count so they might get a promotion. That's not free. Or obviously we had slavery at the foundation of this country, and we had like all kinds of egregious situations, or when people were starting to work in some of the factory situations, right? There had to be major changes that transpired in muckrake journalism in order to make people aware of the horrible conditions, or kids working in the factories and like the conditions that they were living and working in, right?
And where we get all this information from is we're looking at, because we didn't live there. This is history. This is recorded things. It's like Midnight in Paris. I keep going to sci-fi stuff. That movie, when they talk about, there's a thing where yes, I'm one of those ones who's like, oh, the '90s were great. Well, I was young and didn't have to care about anything. Same with someone else. Like if someone's older and they're in the '90s, like, oh no, it was terrible. For me, it's personal experience, right? It's the experience, and so to look at it objectively, like as a whole, then you have to rely on other people's stories. You have to rely on these books. You have to rely on the footage and history. And before we well, going back a century, then if we don't have the media, like we don't have the ocular proof, we don't have the visual, you don't have the audio, then it's in text. And we all know about who writes history and the victors and all that.
True.
And what is actually I mean, there's other ways, of course. We've got archaeology, we've got geology, we've got sciences and stuff.
But it's a fair point to take these things with a grain of salt, that if we weren't there, yes. Oh, and never mind, like I had a couple of episodes with Yona talking about different factors. Like our first episode was talking about Native Americans and Appalachian culture. And then we talked about missing and murdered Indigenous women. And, my buddy Wheezy talks about, he's been doing another, like a side podcast called Wheezy After Dark. So he does like these deep dives on certain subjects, and a couple of them he's covered Native Americans. And we know about some horrific instances that happened with the Native Americans before this place was even officially founded. So there, that.
And we know, and we like in the old days, if you get a scratch, you're gonna get infected bacteria, you're gonna die, you have to cut your arm off. Like there was, and that was the way for almost the entire history of humanity.
Yeah,
no sanitation, no toilets, no medicine, no like don't drink the fecal water where you don't drink where you shit. And like, oh, it took us how many thousands, hundreds of thousands of years to figure that one out. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So they're definitely, it wasn't always perfect, even though it seems like back in the day. So, and we do have a lot of, my buddy Bronk Stomper said some of the least wealthy people today are better off than kings from 1,000 years ago. And I think that's a good point. We do have a lot to be grateful for. And in many ways, life is still good. Right. So that's one of the things I think about, and trying not to despair over the state of, the work that you're doing and the people that you're studying, Tim. Yeah. What about you? Like, how do you kind of manage that with your quality of life and still enjoy it?
Simple. I mean, living simple, being simple, not having a lot of possessions, and just trying to enjoy, live in the moment. remember the past, be mindful of the future, live in the moment, and not letting stuff bother you too much, knowing that there's chaos and suffering in the world and recognizing it. This is kind of going Buddhist, but no, like just I don't know. It's as long as I can do what I can do, and if I can't do what I love doing, like writing and having the technology and the computer, like the internet were to go away, I'd find something else to do. It's like, oh, if I had to go back to other times when there wasn't this, like, I'd start a garden. Like, I'd have to learn how to, like live off the land somehow and build your own house, and like, I don't know. I'd find a way to do something. So that's why. So yeah, that the despair, like, oh, money. I don't have any money anymore. Like, I can't. There's always going to be something else because the mind is always going. The spirit is there, and the spirit is willing, and the mind is there. I have faith that, yeah, as long as you're on the right path, things come to you as well. That's and religion will talk about this. Christianity will talk about this. Um, Jungism, Carl Jung, synchronicity. Like, when you're on the right path, and all of a sudden you're thinking about something, then you see the thing you were thinking about, then it's just like, ah. But as long as you're, have a good focus, and you're not, there's no malice or ill intent or ill will, then I just think good things come back to you.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so we have gone very much over the original hour 15, hour and a half that I had asked you about, and I very much appreciate you taking the time to spend this much time here with me on Think, Change, Repeat. So, I before we go, I do want to show people your latest article. So this dropped August 17th, 2026. So just a couple of days ago over on the Sociable.
Hmm.
And again, I want to remind everybody that I do have links for Tim's X, the Sociable X, and the Sociable website in the show notes. And here is his most recent article, which is DARPA Firefox to advance brain computer interface, speed, scale, and performance,
Hmm.
which the graphic that you have here is really good. And I think it really explains what you're, the point that you're trying to get across very well. But can you give us just a quick overview of this article, and then we'll wrap it up?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So, brain computer interfaces, like you think of Elon Musk, Neuralink, it's just using computers to let your brain do other things, and your brain to use computers to do other things. So, historically, it's been you need like some kind of surgery, or like neural mesh, something to stick into your brain, go beneath the surface. What they're trying to do here is stimulate using different types of computing and targeting different types of the parts of the brain in order to access. It's almost like using the brain as the computer as well. Uh, for example, what DARPA has historically been doing with brain computer interfaces is doing things like using your mind to control drones, like almost like telepathy, uh, trying to stimulate different areas so that you can maybe one day walk again if you have a spinal injury. Or one of them, a crazy one, was they wanted to shine near infrared light into your brain. So you take a drug, take a pill. It's not gonna be active in your body until this. You wear a helmet that has this little things. It's not invasive. Doesn't go into your head. It shines light into you. Then all of a sudden, this pill activates, and it turns on, like, oh, I can sleep. I can go to sleep, or I'm awake. I'm awake. I'm asleep. I'm awake. I'm asleep. Um, and like, even neuroplasticity is another one for PTSD and other neurological disorders, like to try to trick your body, or not trick, but use what's in your body, stimulate it through neuromodulation, through light, through sound, through other things, to and make your brain operate in different ways, and do amazing, incredible, superhuman things. Um, yeah, I mean, It's all for the Pentagon, right? It's all for warfare. So that's what I kind of get a little freaked out about. But this can also make it way to commercial technologies. It has the ability to heal, but anything that has the ability to heal can also be uh, weaponized. It's either medicine or poison. So these things could also debilitate you in a million different ways. Be weapons as well. Oh,
Yeah.
and Firefox, by the way, I love that they call this one Firefox, this latest program, because I had to think someone on X was like, Firefox was a 1982 movie with Clint Eastwood where it's the pilot, uh, he senses a threat, and with his mind, he intercepts the missiles and things. I have to go see that movie. So if anyone else is listening has seen the movie Firefox from 1982 or 1984, I can't remember when, Clint Eastwood, or we should get that on Netflix or whatever. I want to watch that.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking that my friend Doc Rock, if anybody has seen it, he probably has. And if I can talk him into showing it on his Doc Rock's movie night, I'll make sure that you get the link so you can join the streaming, because he does a lot of that stuff and puts together a nice little presentation about it. So that could be pretty cool.
Nice.
Okay, excellent. So we had talked about where they can find you, which I said your X, the Sociable X, and the Sociable website. Now, right now, you said you're not regularly doing podcast appearances, but you are considering launching your own show. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah. That's
Okay.
I've only spoken with one other person in private about that, and yeah, let's. But yeah, I think it's about time to, because I've been interviewed so much, and I don't go out and interview all the amazing people that have all this that can really help me in my work, help expand audiences, and I mean the whole goal of it is just to reach more people and spread the word. So if
Yeah.
I can do that through, yeah, because the writing, and it's not even like it's a little bit of maybe a business decision, like maybe to draw on something, but no, like I want to reach more people, and the way I'm doing it with writing, it's gotten to where it is, and so I want to expand more on that. So yeah.
Yeah, well, it's an avenue for sure, and I think that it's excellent, but I do think that it is easier in some ways to put out like a a little bit more content too, right? Like if
Hmm.
you have your writing and you wanted to talk about something, but maybe you don't have the time yet, or you haven't gotten around to actually putting it in writing, then you could at least provide a little bit of summary. And
Oh
like you
yeah, yeah,
said, you could have a
yeah.
guest or something that is familiar with that,
Mhm.
get their input, have a nice, robust discussion about that, and introduce the idea to people. So, and it is another outlet to share the
Mhm.
work that you're doing as well. So,
Yeah,
and
it's
I
different medium. Yeah, because it doesn't have to be with other guests to begin with. It would just be like, yeah, there's all the stuff I'm talking about and writing about, and like here I'm really detailed because I need to get this all right. But like speak, and I try to write sometimes as if I were speaking, but that doesn't always work out. So
right.
yeah, just to go through like here's the idea. Like, lots of people do this. Just speaking it out loud instead of like, yeah, it's another medium, another mode of putting it out there, communication.
Yeah, for sure. And educating people, right?
Yeah,
So, very good. Okay, well, let me drop that and we're back. So, I wanted to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me, and I've had a wonderful time, and feel like I've learned a lot through listening to your work leading up to this and looking at your articles and also having this conversation with you. So, people know where they can find you, and I have one last favor to ask, which is just please like, subscribe, and share the show. If you have a Discord or a Telegram group or something like that, or you can repost. I thank the people that do share and repost and like and show up for the live and listen after the fact and drop a comment, all those things. I really appreciate it. And I think, oh, I wanted to shout out the chat as well. So we had Jason Barker, Will
Mhm.
Tabox, Sweets, Spirit of the Age, Doc Spoiler, Guard Goldsmith, Yona, Bronx Stomper, Nostradamus, Culling of the Herd, Little John, Smoo Haskey, G Talent, Greg Dub 27, TK2 Beyond, Karen Carpenter, Hemp Car, Ghost Start, Caligula's Incarnation, LT Oracle of Truth. And if I missed anybody, I sincerely apologize. I did try to keep up with everybody. Oh, and Ricky from Anything is Possible just stopped by as well. So thanks everybody so much for tuning in. And thank you very much, Tim. And I hope that perhaps you'd be willing to come on and speak with me again at another time.
Oh, I would love to. I've had an absolute blast. You're so organized. You do your homework. You have great insights. I'm learning from you. Love the audience. This is like I'm at home here. This is great.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, everybody, we really appreciate you. And I was gonna steal the words from my friend Wheezy. It was big love, hug, and kisses. All right, have a good one. Bye-bye.